Right here we're given that capital F of x is the integral from 1 to x of t minus 12t squared dt. And we're asked to find first capital F of x, which obviously does not mean rewrite that integral. It means evaluate that integral. So if we're going to integrate t minus 12t squared, on the first t I'm going to increase the power to 2 and then divide that coefficient by 2. On the t squared, I'm going to increase that power to 3 and then take 12 and divide it by 3. And evaluate this integral from 1 to x. So we're looking at 1/2 t squared minus 4t cubed evaluated from 1 to x. That means we're going to have to plug in the x first. 1/2 x squared minus 4x to the third. Take that value and subtract when we plug in 1. So 1 squared minus 4 times 1 to the third. Simplifying just a little bit more means we'll leave this first expression as it is. But we're going to subtract 1/2 minus 4. Well, 1/2 minus 4 is negative 3.5. And when I subtract a negative, that's adding 3.5, so 7/2. And that's my value, or my equation for capital F of x. Now that I have that function, my accumulation function, we're asked to evaluate it at a few different places. So first, finding capital F of 2, which of course just means substitute and simplify. So first, we'll plug in 2 into our function everywhere that there's an x, and then simplify. Well, 1/2 of 2 squared, 1/2 of 4, that's 2. 4 times 2 to the third, 2 to the third is 8 times 4, it's 32, plus 7/2, which I'll call 3.5 in this case. So 2 minus 32 is negative 30, plus 3.5 gives me negative 26.5. Next, we'll do it again. This time evaluating our accumulation function at 1. So 1/2 times 1 squared minus 4 times 1 to the third plus 7/2. That leaves me with 1/2 minus 4 plus 7/2. And if I just add my halves together, 1/2 plus 7/2 is 8/2, which is 4. 4 minus 4 gives us 0. Doing the same thing at negative 1 does not give us the opposite of 0 or negative 0. We actually should plug it in and see what happens. And squaring negative 1 keeps it the same. So 1/2 times negative 1 squared is still 1/2. But negative 1 to the third is negative 1 multiplied by the negative 4 makes this 4 positive now instead of negative. And our 7/2 stays the same. So 1/2 and 7/2 again makes 4, but we're not subtracting 4 this time. Now we're adding it. So F at negative 1 is 8.